Boa tarde a todos, sejam bem-vindos então à primeira Academia Política do CHEGA. Neste momento vamos ter connosco o convidado o Gerolf Annemans, formado em Direito pela Universidade de Antuérpia, neste caso político do Partido Belga Nacionalista Vlaams Belang, presidente do ID Party e eurodeputado desde 2014. Neste caso o nosso eurodeputado não fala português, por isso a entrevista será em inglês. Qualquer dúvida que vos surja, estão à vontade para falar connosco durante o chat.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gerolf.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Fine, what about you?
How are you? I'm
Welcome
fine.
to our first Academy of Political of the Party.
I'm very pleased, thank you.
And for us, it's a compliment to have you here too.
Not at all, it's my compliment.
So, can we start from some questions now? And at the end, we're going to give you the questions for our public and try to have 4 or 5 people speak and doubt. It's okay? Can you hear me well?
I can hear you perfectly. I was said I had a speech for half an hour, but you are going to follow another scheme, I suppose. You prefer me answering your questions? Is that a shame?
No, we have 4 or 5 questions to you right now. We're going to talk about the ID party, the main role, and about the role in Europe. And then we can do some questions to the public, because I think everybody here is very excited to have you. And we're going to try, not to everybody, of course, because we are a lot in here. This is really good for us, but 4 or 5 questions about the public.
I'm at your disposal.
Okay, so let's start. In the current times, there's a need for an European parliamentary group that defends national identity and democracy in Europe. I think everybody, this message is like a call to action. Why do you think this is happening right now, this need?
Well, some of us, some of the parties that are in our group already had a long march to go to come to the point that we are now. In the meantime, the European Union, starting from the Maastricht Treaty in the beginning of the 90s, changed entirely its objective. Before, or more or less before, European Union was a cooperation of free nation states that thought that on the continent, on the European continent, they should cooperate in certain fields and on certain topics, which is something we were in favor of. Free trade and things like that are perfect for us, and we would still like to return to that pre-Maastricht stage. But from Maastricht on and further on, the European Union became, in the mindset of those who were governing this European Union, a centralized state with, first of all, as many topics and as many powers as possible. And secondly, extending these powers and trying to imitate structurally and juridically in a law-giving context, trying to imitate the structures of a real state, with a president and a government and a parliament, etc., and all in this Montesquieu sense of creating a nation state on its own, above all the others, and trying to diminish and reduce the powers of the nation states. Now, as soon as the European Union was on that path, it became a very nasty structure. This was not the gentle cooperation anymore. This was Brussels and EU, European politicians specialized in their level and in their European level. And then from then on, a few parties, first in France, then in Flanders, and all the time extending. Italy, of course, right from the starting, the parties started to see this shame and started to campaign around referenda in the Netherlands, of course, and in France, on the constitution. First it was called the Constitution. Afterwards, it was, sadly for your beautiful capital, called the Treaty of Lisbon. This referenda were trying to break down or slow down the process. And these referenda were abolished by the European politicians. They said, oh, we don't call it constitution anymore. We'll call it the Lisbon Treaty, which was actually the same text apart from some details, and was the start of a real constitution in the sense of creating the European nation states. Now this is getting out of hand in the meantime. We've seen in the COVID crisis that the European Union stealed away the competence, the powers in cases of social security and healthcare. And they proved that bureaucracy is not a good alternative to the nation state's efficiency. We can see that now. Fortunately for the British, after the Brexit, they were able to organize their own vaccination campaign in the COVID crisis. And the difference is clear to everybody. Europe has more deaths and has more delay on vaccine programs than, for instance, Great Britain, or even than America, etc. So even high-level European politicians say it was a fiasco. And why it was a fiasco? Because the competence of healthcare is a nation-state competence. So they steal it away, and it's a good example of what we should not do. And so in the European Parliament, we are now seeing two kinds of European politicians. The politicians that play this game of the centralized European state, the EU. And there is, first, it was enough for them to have the EPP, big group in the parliament, the EPP, and then the socialists working together. Now, since the last elections, they don't have a majority anymore, but Renew, the so-called liberals, joined the majority, and now we have a majority of three big groups. And there is only one alternative, actually. Yes, we have the ECR, the conservatives, but the ECR are soft on these things and very confused about more European Union or not. And in some cases, yes, and in other cases, not. So this is not the kind of thing where you could change history like it is running now. If you want to change it, you have to have a clear vision on what should happen. And this clear vision is the reason why we created in the previous mandate before the 2019 election, together with Marine Le Pen and Matteo Salvini, we created a group which was first a small group, and before it was a very tiny group, but then it was a small group. Now it's a big group. It's one of the biggest groups in the parliament. So we are increasing the possibility to have influence on what happens. Of course, this majority is fighting very severely, and they are in many cases joined by the Greens and even by the communists, who also want this big Soviet Union-like state, and they like it. And so what we see now is that in Eastern Europe, countries come up and parties come up that are well aware what it is to have a two centralized state that is covering all the nation states, namely from their Soviet Union era. Polish and Hungarians know very well what you should prevent if you want a free nation and a free state. And so you see now that Viktor Orban in Hungary, an absolute majority in Hungary, half of the Hungarians vote for him. He was thrown out of the EPP because he hinders too much this centralizing power accumulating European Union. Same thing for the Polish. They want to thrown out, but in the ECR, they are now looking for a better vision and a better view on joining conservative group. And we are now in discussion with them. to make one of the biggest groups in the European Parliament, gaining this influence that we need to change the course of history. It's not easy. It will be complicated, but with the clear vision that we have, we hope that we will be able to change, and that's why we want as many parties as possible to join us. We were very happy with the Portuguese input. When I went to Lisbon and I got the signature of Ventura, we were very pleased because of Portugal, because of historic reasons, the Portuguese are very, very pro-European, and that is why, and that is, by the way, something I should underline. The others, the centralizers, the federalists, as I call them, they speak about Europe. You are pro-Europe or against Europe.
Against Europe.
We are so against. So they call us being against Europe, and the country. On the contrary, we want Europe to be what it was, a continent with free nations that, in a peaceful way, of course. After the lessons that we got from history, in a peaceful way, compete with each other and come to a better result for the people of their countries. And that's the vision on Europe that we have. And it's a pro-European vision. We think that centralized state like Napoleon and Hitler and the Soviet Union wanted to create on the European continent is anti-European, anti-Europe. So pro-Europe is the way we want to reform the European Union in a sense that the free nations cooperate together on a platform of European Union. You can call it European Union, or we can call it a European alliance, whatever. The word is not necessarily important, but another vision on how these nations cooperate instead of vanish into a big centralized state. If that is the first answer to your question. So we need to be a big group. And that's what we try to do. And apart from the group, we have an ID party. European political parties were founded by the EU centralists, and mainly to give taxpayers money to their propaganda, their pro-EU propaganda. And what we do now with ID Party is using a part of that money, namely the money that we get from our taxpayers, to give that to another idea and another vision on the European Union. So they are very annoying. They are with big microscopes seeing what we do. And of course, they were very, very in panic. And that's why I was so joyful with the CHEGA alliance, because Portugal we never heard anything about Portugal unless more European Union, pro-European parties, and never any form of criticism on the European Union scheme. Although Portugal, on the Iberic Peninsula, is of course a country that knows very well how migration and issues like that plunge people into a future that they don't want. And so another sound from Portugal, it was very joyful for us, and we were very proud to have you in our party. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your answer. We know that this is a really hard fight, especially with the propaganda of the left that puts some bad labels to the ID party. And every time that we speak with someone about the ID party, it's like, oh no, they don't want a pro-Europe. No, they are the Hitlers, the Mussolinis. I think there's a lack of information from the people.
Yes, it's very ironic that the historic examples of a European Union that was dominated either by French with Napoleon or by Germans with Hitler, that these visions that are more alike to the European Union as it is evolving now, that these are used against the people that don't want domination of one or the other. And so if we criticize the European Union and certain decisions of the European Union by pointing out that Madame Merkel, together with Mr. Macron, decides of the future of the Flemish and the Portuguese and the Romanians, then they are very nervous because they know that this argument is cutting in their flesh, and that's I'm always amused by their reaction. But what I think is very sad. That's why I'm here, and I'm spending my time with you. What I'm always thinking is very sad is the fact that people like you have to explain about these false arguments. The argument is false. We are the ones that don't want too much power in one hand or in a few hands. We are the ones that want the power to be with the people. We don't want to be compared to those in history, the Mussolinis or the Hitlers or the Napoleons for that case. We don't want to be compared to those who wanted to centralize all political power in a few hands and in a few capitals. And that's what's happening now. Brussels should not govern the Portuguese, and that is entirely the opposite of what the argument says. We are not the Mussolinis of these days. I think we are the liberators and the guerrilla fighters of these days. So.
Well, we have another question is regarding that ID Party is a recent project. There are still some doubts about his main goals. So what can you tell us? Where are the main goals of ID Party right now and even for the future?
Well, the main goals are, first of all, uniting our powers, uniting the people and the parties in Europe, in the European Union field, that are alike or are willing to fight the fight and not an unpeaceful fight. It's a peaceful fight, of course, a political fight in Parliament and in a democratic framework. That's why we call it a party, and that's why we function in the framework of the European Parliament. The main aims are so uniting us, we together, those who want, first of all, another European Union, like I explained, a European Union which is more like a network than a bloc. We don't want a European bloc with one centralized judicial and law-giving center in one capital, Brussels, governed but mainly by a European Commission, which is mainly bureaucratic. We want a more loose way of cooperating with each other, more like we see for instance, in the Schengen Treaty, where the Danish had an opt-out system. We did in a digital world. We don't think that it's a terrible mistake to have cooperation and get out of some paragraphs if you don't like it or if your people don't like it. And then the cooperation can be put forward by others. And those who want to be in a centralized state, they can go further. But those who don't must have the freedom. What is now at stake is pushing them all together in this EU system with a court of justice that is severely punishing people or member states that are not abiding the rules. The rules are political compromises that are not necessarily in all the cases the good measures that should be taken, as we have seen in the vaccination disaster. That's what we can call it now. And so first, another cooperation on the European continent, in the European Union. And then migration is, of course, a very key issue of our group. For the moment, we see that the European Union, apart from what they know that the people want, organizes and pushes migration, mainly from Africa and Muslim countries. And the people in Europe don't want that. And so we want to change this EU vision. They do this because of cheap labor reasons and others. I'm not going to speak here for 3 hours about migration, but I must underline and stress the fact that we cooperate very much together on the migration issue, especially now that the migration pact of the European Union is the Migration Pact of the European Union is now coming above the Marrakesh Pact of the United Nations. And to some extent, it's going even further than the Marrakesh Pact of the United Nations. So the governments and the left-wing parties that govern us, and especially in the European Union, they don't take care about what people say. And the only thing what people have if they want to protest the Migration Pact, which will actually organize and push migration through from the origin countries till anywhere you want to be in the European Union. If you want to voice your opposition to this Migration Pact, there is only one way actually, and it is ID and the ID parties, and the parties that work together in idea. And it is supporting the Save Europe project that we have, that we organized after the Migration Pact. We can still slow down this process if we can push enough, if we can gain enough pressure on those who decide. So the Migration Pact is not decided yet. It is presented by the European Commission and from the Parliament, but also from the people. We will also use the conference on the future of Europe, where we are now part of the decision process. Migration should be an issue, and opposing the migration that the European Union will organize in the next decades, as they plan for the moment. Opposing this is something that only we can do, and that's why we have to gain forces and join forces and work together in this organization. Okay, it's not perfect. It's not the biggest organization yet, but it will become the biggest if we keep on pushing. Yeah. We are sure.
You answer already to questions, because the subject of the Migration Pact is really an issue that we have to underline, because we can see in the last few years that migration has increased a lot, but even the problems that become the main problems in most of the countries. If we look to Sweden, we can see the tax of the rapes and violation in the last 10 years. It's insane. And even in our countries, we say, okay, but Portugal is a small country if we compare to the others. Yes, but in a small country, the biggest percentage that we have, it's really crazy. Even in Lisbon and in the south, if we speak with each other in here, this conversation will be okay, but we speak to outside, it's like, you're not okay. You have to receive everybody. We understand that there are problems, of course, but if they are problems and they come here and they have duties too. But that doesn't happen.
That is never on the line. Even if we would like to introduce this idea of rights versus duties,
exactly.
They don't accept it. The only thing that those in power, and especially those in power on the European level, the only thing they want to hear is try to make people not see what is happening. Try to push them in the corner of racism and anti-Europeanism and all the bad things that they try to put on our foreheads. And only the existence only of people like Le Pen, Salvini, and Van Grieke, and all the leaders that we have, the only existence of our parties and of our European party is already enough to annoy them, because up till now, up till let's say the 90s, they never heard any opposition that was worth listening to. Whereas now in many countries, they see that, for instance, in my country, Vlaams Belang is now the biggest party of the country. And that is very annoying. Of course, they try to find some majorities to keep up their business, but they know for the future, they can't go on like that, because otherwise there will be a revolution. And in the democracies that we are, the only revolution that is threatening their powers is the revolution in the voting boxes, and that's what we do, and we can't do anything else. Of course, there are 100 ways to create a revolution, but now we are in the 21st century. Revolutions should be on the internet. Revolutions should be in democratic parties that function in a way that the people can vote for them, put trust in them. And of course, it's a long way. Some people are not very prudent, and from time to time say to us, when will you come to power and when will everything change? It's not like that. The revolutions happen. Revolutions happen step by step, election after election. And that's what we see now. Election after election, we are growing, and from time to time we had we got in government in Austria, but due to some circumstances, they are out of government now. But still, the party is reshuffling and trying to come back. Le Pen, imagine what happened. What happened when Salvini became Minister of the Interior? There was panic all over Europe, just because one minister in one member state said, "I'm going to close these borders. The people don't want this. Stop migration." And he reversed the boats that were coming from Africa. The others find the majority to temporarily put him aside, but he's now back in government. And it's a long battle, but it's a battle that we have to fight. And imagine if Marine Le Pen would win the presidential election in France, perhaps that will not change immediately the whole European country, the whole European Union. But nobody can deny that the upcoming of our parties is of historic influence. So we have a good goal to show to our children and our grandchildren that we did what we had to do in the beginning of the 21st century.
Yes, it's a step-by-step mission, especially because we are facing not only people, but even the media. The media is always against the ID party and all the parties of right. It's in Portugal, It happens the same thing.
Yeah, in Belgium, for instance, we now had figures that Vlaams Belang asks from the government, and the government is subsidizing the printed media with 350 million euros, which for a small country like Belgium is a huge amount of money. So they buy the media, and of course the media show as if the ones that give them all this money, this subsidizing money. So the subsidizing is because of supporting democracy, but it's a vice versa thing that happens. They subsidize a monolithic state and one version, and the version is always the government and promoting the government and promoting the ministers of the government. So people can clearly see that this is not a real democracy. The alternative of the social media is very they panic about this, and we've seen in the United States blocking the Twitter account of Donald Trump was of course a historic event. Nobody can deny it, and we see now that Merkel and Macron and other EU leaders try to punish people that don't act against what they call fake news on the internet, and so they will try to take away this media from us, because they know very well that we have a direct contact with the people, and that social media give us the opportunity to talk to the people in an immediate and an unfiltered way. But if they take this from us, we will find other ways. We will not,
other ways to fight it.
It's a fight. It's a long fight, but we are strong, and our strength is actually the truth. The truth cannot be prevented by any means. No. And so as long as we keep with the people and with the truth, as long as we speak the truth and put the truth on the table, we will be stronger than they are.
Now that you have spoke about that, we are facing a problem here in Portugal about other parties that they want to attempt to become our party, CHEGA, illegal, because they say that it's not constitutional, our main project, and even the ideals that we fight for. So what do you think about about that? Do you think it's a natural thing from other parties? What can we do to show that it's not real, because we already been accepted, so it's because it's constitutional?
Well, I'm very glad with your question, because it gives me the opportunity to encourage you, and in the meantime say to you that the road to what we have already reached in our countries, in France and in Flanders, the road is long and can be very bumpy. I myself, when we founded Vlaams Blok, before it was, there was at some point a decision of the regime. It was still under Mr. Verhofstadt's first prime ministership. The regime started a judicial procedure against my party, saying that it was a racist organization. And after a process that took 7 years, changing the laws, changing the constitution, and then bringing us to courts during 5 years with appeals and cassations, etc., etc. After 7 years, they brought up a decision of the highest court in Belgium that my party was a criminal organization, applying laws that they had made to compete with the mafia organizations, the drug mafia. And so the laws that were foreseen for the drug mafia were used to forbid Vlaams Blok, the party that was priority to Vlaams Belang, the identity party in Flanders. So it was a total disaster for us. The regime forbid Vlaams Belang, or practically made impossible to continue Vlaams Blok. So we stopped the party Vlaams Blok. We started a new party, Vlaams Belang, the actual Vlaams Belang party. And the next election, 3 months later, we were immediately the biggest party of the country. People joined us, people enthusiastically supported us. And so the success story of Vlaams Belang never ended after that. So imagine if Portuguese powers that consider that CHEGA is a very big danger, because Portugal they could present in Brussels to the European Union, Portugal as a country where there is no one criticizing the European Union. Everything where you put the EU label on was applauded by all Portuguese, and that migration or anything, the Portuguese were in favor. And now all for a sudden, there is a party that openly opposes this EU system. And of course, the EU system is panicking, and they will try to find anything to stop you from going on. But if you are strong and honest with yourself, and if you represent what you say, and if the people can see that what you say is honest and clear, if you speak the truth, nobody can keep you away from growing. And so if they try to put you in jail, go to jail, but go on. We didn't go to jail. That's what they wanted in the end, put us in jail also. But they as soon as the election showed that they doubled our party by doing all this, they didn't put us in jail. But if necessary, I would go to jail for the truth. Thank you.
Thank you for this answer, especially because encourage everybody that is here in this meeting. Okay. Because we know that every time that we speak with someone, it's like, no, you're going down. It's very ironic, because we are the ones that we are against the freedom, but we are the ones that we are arrested for every word that we say. So, well, Gerolf, now we have some questions here. So okay. I have Frederico Quadros. Are you here? Ok, podes fazer a tua questão, se quiseres. Frederico?
He was showing with his hand. He heard you, but he...
Okay, I got it now.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Gerolf. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I have a question for you. Do you think the European Union Council is taking any serious action on cases such as José Guerra's false curriculum data? Our government presented false information to the European Council, which made his application so better in a way to replace the committee's decision.
A decision on what? I didn't understand.
There was this man called José Guerra.
Mm-hmm.
He was presented as the government's choice that replaced the committees of international selection of the European Union, and as we can, and it can be easily said that it was falsified information, and it was then confirmed by the government. Do you have any idea about this?
Well, the European Council, normally in a new European system, I would put more confidence in the Council, because the Council anyhow is representing the nation states and the heads of state of the nation states, which you can put on under a better pressure from the people. So the ones you should not trust is the European Commission, and the ones you should not trust is the European Parliament either. I say it as a member of the European Parliament, but EU fanatism is in the Parliament stronger than anywhere else. So normally I would say the Council is a good way to put your government under pressure. But of course, in your case, you have a government that cannot be trusted, because he is more than any other government a part of the system, of the EU system. So the only thing you can do is inform your people and try to gain strength by showing to the people that your government is lying, that your government is manipulating the EU process, and that in order to stay in the EU process, your government is fanatically going beneath the truth, beside the truth. And so I can only wish you all the energy that you need to bring these lies and these manipulations to the surface, and bring them to your people, and try to enhance your people to go against your government if he is lying to them. Is that an answer to your question?
Yes, that's a good answer. Thank you, Gerolf.
No, I thank you.
Okay, so we have Duarte, Nuno, we have some questions. Duarte.
We can see you, but we don't hear you.
Well, we don't hear it.
Your microphone?
My microphone was...
Okay, we can hear you.
By the host.
You're shining green now.
Yeah. I have 4 questions. I don't know which question I should choose. But I think you can give a short answer. Don't need a big explanation. Does the European Union need a restructuration or a recreation like the nation society?
Well, it's a very, very good question. If I have to answer short, as you asked, I think it can be reformed, but it will be with measures that are nearly to reconstruction. So if you ask me, should we first abolish it and then recreate a new European corporation? That is a long discussion. The only thing I want to stress is we are not against European cooperation, not even on many fields, and even not to cooperation that was up till the Treaty of Maastricht on the table. We liked that, and there were many things that were well organized. And things went wrong after that. So do we need a restructuring or a reform? At least a reform, and if necessary, a restructuring, if that is somehow an answer to it. But we're not against European cooperation. That's what you have to know.
And what are the consequences of the fall of the European Union?
Well, we don't want the European Union. I don't want to speak about the terms that we put on it. If this European Union should fall, because we are on the wrong path. We would like to recreate the European Union, and preferably I would choose another name for it, a European alliance I have suggested, with a cooperation that is based on free nations. That is the shame. Would you suggest that I want to abolish all European cooperation? I say no. If you want me to say this European Union should be put aside, the Treaty of Lisbon and the whole centralized state idea that is behind it, should we continue or stop it? My answer is, of course, stop it and change the way and the direction of this cooperation.
Okay, third and last question. What are the consequences of the European Union become a unique country with a flag, with an anthem?
It's a disaster. It's a disaster. I more or less explained in my introduction. It's a copy-paste of Nazi Germany. It's a copy-paste of Napoleon. It's a copy-paste of the Soviet Union. We should learn out of our own European history. If you force the people into one system, the system will fall in the end, and the people will be unhappy, will be killed, will be forced into illiberty. And so what we need is liberty, and what we need is freedom, and not any kind of centralized state. It's anti-European to do so. Europe is diversity. Europe is many countries, many languages, many people, and they should cooperate, and they should live in peace, but they should not be in one state.
Thank you very much, sir.
I don't, no thanks. Sorry for being too long yet.
So now we're going to pass the other question for Carolina Garcia.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us today. So my question is, do you think that federalization process is something reversible in the European Union?
What process? I'm sorry.
Do you think that federalization process is something reversible in the European Union?
Yes, of course. I do believe that the system can be turned around, that we are not historically obliged to accept to go on. That's, by the way, our difference with the pro-federalist views on European cooperation. They think that going further will necessarily mean following them and their scheme and their system and their centralizing opinion on it. Whereas we think that we should find another way to cooperate. Was that your question, or did I understand you wrong?
Thank you so much.
Oh, no, I thank you. Not at all.
Okay, thank you, Gerolf. Unfortunately, guys, we don't have much time, but I hope, Gerolf, we meet again.
Well, as soon as I can. You are all young guys. I'm not a young guy, but as soon as I can, I will come back to Lisbon to meet with you. And my previous visit was very inspiring, and I think CHEGA is doing a splendid job. And please go on. I'll come back with talking with you and meeting you, because the project that you are in the southern part of Europe that you are launching is so unique and so important that whenever you want, I'll be with you.
It was really nice to have you here. And now we have a special greeting for the national commitment. So we are
yes.
waiting.
Hello, Gerolf.
I'm not. Hello.
Can you see me?
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, I see you. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. Just on the behalf of the young people from CHEGA, we want to thank you very much for being with us today. It's a huge pleasure. It's a great opportunity, and I'm sure that we all learn a lot with you. And we are working together, and we want to build a new Europe inspired by examples like you. Thank you very much.
Please accept my thanks to you. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Well,
Bye-bye.
that's it. Thank you. Bye.
Obrigado. Obrigado.